got this notice on my doorstep that they're going to be shutting off the water to our house because they've been, I think I talked about this before. They're doing some major road repairs. So like 800 times a day, we get these major rumbling through our house because there's large trucks crashing over their steel plates and screwed up trenches and stuff. So now they're finally getting to our street, I guess, and they're gonna they wanted to let us know about a scheduled light disruption from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in 2 days. No, tomorrow.
Oh, thank you for telling us in advance. I mean, it's not like we're all working from home in this area. Thanks.
Yes, yeah. So I took a picture of their service interruption schedule piece of paper. It says it's the second notice. I didn't see the first one. And it says, Golden State Water Company would like to inform you of a scheduled temporary service interruption in your neighborhood required to complete an important water system improvement project. I have no problem with that, except for the part that it's all day long while everybody in your house is in your house working and schooling. And it's like they're trying to do it, when it will have the least impact on their customers, is what they said. So I rewrote. I marked this up. I put the thing on my iPad. This would, instead of like to inform you of a scheduled temporary service interruption, I said we'd like to totally screw you over with a scheduled all-day service interruption.
Geez. I mean, sure, you could probably maybe like fill up a couple of gallons of jugs of water.
That's exactly what we're going to do. So we can flush the toilets and have something to do. Yeah.
Exactly. That's where I was going, is like, so that you can at least do a few things.
Yeah, so I have that to look forward to tomorrow. We'll figure it out. But and I know like you can't necessarily do like heavy construction in the middle of the night either on a residential street. So I get that. I just think that maybe 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on a weekday
doesn't qualify as a minor inconvenience.
Correct.
Yeah. My favorite ones are always the two things that always just baffle me. One is if you're doing construction within a school zone, mm-hmm. and they say we want to limit so that we can just limit the disruption of class time. We want all scheduled deliveries to occur before, like say 8 o'clock. Like, isn't that when like buses and parents and walkers are all actually trying to get to
the drop off
school that you're actually, and every school project that I worked on never failed. It was always like dead in the middle of when the kids were going to school, deliveries were occurring.
Yeah.
And then the other one is garbage, service. I mean, don't you think it might be a little bit easier if you actually waited until, and I get it, you're going all across the city and stuff, and I understand. But I mean, wouldn't it be easier to like maybe dispatch a couple more trucks and wait till say after all of the buses are off the road and all the parents are out of the way for you to like do your garbage pickup, just so that you're not trying to compete? I mean, because I literally watched a bus basically have to inch their way up a street behind a garbage truck because there's just not enough room with people parked on the side of the road and all of this other stuff to actually get to the school. And so something that you would think would take maybe like a half a minute to get from point A to point B took them like I think it was roughly around like say 10 minutes or so, but it seemed like forever is what it seemed like.
Our city actually has a mandated no overnight parking on the streets anywhere in the city. So our streets are relatively clean, and they do come through with the trash trucks early in the morning. And there's been many times when I've had to run out there, at 5:45 in the morning because I forgot to do it the night before, because they do come super early to our neighborhood. I know that's not the same for every neighborhood, but in ours it is. And also for street sweeping. They come out and they don't have to worry about cars being out there on the curbs, and it does help with that congestion a lot, but most cities do not have that in place. And actually, I'm sure it's been a huge revenue generator because most people have never had to deal with that, and they come park on the street in our city and get a ticket.
Now we just have it's on-street parking. We've got small lots around here, so I mean, most people don't have a wide enough lot to actually have like a two-car wide driveway.
And we know that garages are not to park cars in. Those are storage units. Yeah.
Funny enough, most of the older houses around here, none of them have garages.
Just a carport.
Yeah, just have a carport.
Yeah.
I wish we had a garage just so I could like hide some of the things that we otherwise like to hide.
I just think it's because we talked about this on the last episode. Like, I just think, we talked about it from the perspective of businesses not being able to hire people that are outside of states. This is also something where the cities need to be a little bit proactive about the way things are and make some adjustments, right? Like, stop treating it like nothing ever changed. And in our case, the water system is private. It's not a city thing, but it's still like you can't just turn off the water to everybody's house in multiple city blocks at one time and not expect it to wreak havoc when everybody's working from home. So these disruptions are totally something that they're planning ahead for, and they're still not doing it appropriately.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Crazy. Well, hey, it's this episode's going to go up today, right? So it's technically still Veterans Day, man. So thank you for your service. I put out a tweet. Hope you don't mind, but I wanted everyone to give you a pat on the back for everything you've done, and to all the other veterans out there. Thank you for your service. I don't get the day off. Doesn't sound like you're getting the day off, but my kids are getting the day off.
Yeah, definitely had no day off.
Yeah.
Actually, my son got his online college classes, and he's like, yeah, well, one of my classes are canceled. I'm like, yeah, why? And he's like, well, the professor was a veteran. And I'm like, he must have been Air Force. He goes, how'd you know? I'm like, forget it.
Okay, so, oh man, it's so funny how there's this rivalry. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So actually, what's funny is another guy on my project team, he's a veteran as well, and got onto a call early before everybody else popped on, and we're talking about it. He's like, all right, so real talk. Let me ask you a question. When somebody comes up and says, thank you for your service, what do? I'm like, even to this day, I don't really know.
It's a compliment. You just say thanks. That's all you say.
But most everybody that I know, veteran-wise, I mean, yes, I guess the thing is, well, you're welcome kind of thing, or you're worth it is another one that I've heard more recently. We just don't really want to sound so disingenuous about the thing that we're just like, okay, it's just like, yeah, I don't know why it is, but I mean, and I seriously say that this is like at least 50% of my veteran friends don't know how to like respond to it. We just say, all right.
Yeah. Kind of bashfully look the other way. No, man, it's easy, right? You just say, thanks for saying that. That's it. Like, you don't even have to say you're welcome, because I get it. Like, it does feel kind of weird saying that, but I learned a long time ago when, and my parents didn't teach me this. It was actually a coworker taught me this. And they said, I just gave you a compliment. Say thanks, right? And it was like, oh, that's obvious, because I had a similar response to a compliment that you just had, and it's just kind of like you don't know what to do with it. It's awkward and he's like, no, you just say thanks. That's it. Move on. But when someone pays you a compliment, like, acknowledge it, right? Don't go into the calm lag of silence. That would be Anyway, well, thank you for your service, Cormac.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was wondering do you have because you actually did serve, like you went over, like, explain to the listeners what you did, what you went through.
9 years in the Army, 5 years active, 4 years National Guard. It's technically considered 3 tours, but really it's only 2, because Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and Operation Determined Resolve. So I think total of 18 months in combat service, Patriot Missile Crew Chief. Many of the Patriot missiles were actively involved in Desert Storm as a anti-missile deterrent, even though we are we are anti-aircraft, not anti-missile, but now the whole system has been retooled to be both anti-aircraft and anti-missile. So
A little more proactive there, yeah.
a little proactive. I mean, because there's actually my very first paper that I wrote coming out of, we had to find an article to basically either defend or I don't know, whatever. What's the opposite of defend?
Protect?
Well,
Go
no,
on the
it's just like
offense?
there's basically a pro and con paper, the legitimacy of an article.
Oh, yeah.
And I ended up writing a more or less an op-ed disputing some of the claims that an analysis of the Patriot missile performance in Desert Storm. So he was writing it from the comfort of MIT, and I was writing my opinion paper based off of the experience that I had boots on the ground. So it was kind of interesting to kind of write that and basically almost see how people viewed what was going on during that time, how people perceived the performance of this particular system at the time, and how it actually performed from my perspective, my point of view, which was a lot different than his.
I bet.
Because you see missile leave canister, missile go up in sky, missile hit something, big explosion, rain down of debris. That felt pretty accurate to me.
Yeah.
And then
geez.
he was contending that it wasn't as accurate as published, and because of Kobar Towers and a couple of other places where the warhead or the fuel tank made impact with the ground. And without getting too long, deep-winded and all this other stuff, the Scud D missile that was used in Desert Storm, pretty sure it was Scud D, but getting old. It's been a long time. Basically, when it was purchased from the then Soviet Union to Iraq, they basically took the missile, they extended the missile, and he literally, think about this, he went to Home Depot essentially to buy some things to extend the range of it, because they wanted to extend the range to places like Israel and stuff like that. And so
the shelf range extension missile parts.
Exactly. And the problem was that when he did that, it obviously, when the missile went up, broke the atmosphere, and then came back down, the heat, the force, friction, and everything else basically broke the missile apart. So now you have multiple parts, multiple very, very large pieces of a missile. Well, to not politicize this a little too much, we were basically only allowed to shoot one missile at a target. Well, what if that target is now 3 targets? Still only allowed to shoot one missile at it, because missiles cost money. And that was the dilemma, is okay, so got 3 big pieces. We were expecting one big piece. Which piece is the actual warhead or fuel tank or extra fuel tank or engine? I mean, all of these are damaging when they hit the ground, but obviously the warhead's the one that you're worried about, or potentially the fuel tank. And so you shot at one. You may have hit the warhead, you may not have. So,
wow.
So that was the contention, is that we were not as effective because of some damage that occurred. And the problem was that, as we contend, is the damage was what it was only because of the way we were directed to fight the war, not the effectiveness of the actual system to fight it.
Interesting. The show notes for this are going to be insane.
Yeah.
People can learn a lot about the different missiles and the different operations you're involved in. I'm trying to take some notes, but it kind of reminds me of just people not being comfortable with the mess of the process. And a lot of times, you're talking about stuff that's out of your control, and the rules of engagement and things that are just part of this kind of naturally messy thing. And then, so man, I'm going to stretch to bring this back to architecture. You walk around a studio and somebody kind of comes in on the weekends and cleans stuff up because they're not comfortable with a client coming in and seeing a mess, is, I mean, that we definitely have seen that behavior before, but it's also, that's not how it is. It is a messy process. And I think one of the things that like you were comfortable with during your operations was that messy process because it was just the way things worked. Right. And I think the same thing about architects. Like they're, I think typically, generically more okay with a messy process than other people are who tend to buy products at the end of a process.
Well, let's pull it into like the show. Mm-hmm. And how we go about the show. I mean, we talk about the messy process. Almost every episode, we're talking about one bit of the messy process. And so a lot of times when, something, hey, how you doing, Evan? And you start talking about the messy process, I just really wanted to hear, that I wanted you to gloss over and say, oh, yeah, everything's great. And then you're just like, this happened or that happened or whatever. And they're just like, and then it's just so I mean, you're right. A lot of people aren't real comfortable with the process. And then a lot of times just think about this, how you have to almost justify, you have to like rethink the way that you explain what it is that you do, or what it is that everything that I talked about, is all declassified information. And, it's not like anything that I was sharing some, crazy secret. It was well publicized, well published, but the way that it's always explained is, the Patriot was a very effective missile. And,
it's been wordsmithed and kind of, it's been smoothed over.
And since we always have these war stories about architecture and how that we go about the process and how we go about our day and everything else, and, what's really interesting is that a lot of times when I came home from the office and they'd be like, hey, how was your day? It's like, oh, well, it was good. And I would give them the glossed over version of it.
Yeah.
And now that they actually like hear.
Oh, yeah. You can't hide that anymore.
You can't hide everything is just like,
yeah.
And my oldest will like walk by and he's like, man, that was a long meeting you had. I'm like, yeah. And just, like, with this almost like,
you've got a tick now. Normally, you have that time from the drive home from the office to resolve all ticks, but now you don't, right? You just walk out of a door and people are like, avoid dad.
Yeah. It's like, so.
No decompression time. Yeah, we talked a couple of episodes ago about award season, and there's an award ceremony coming out tonight. We found out one of the projects that I worked on last is going to receive an award. We don't know what that award is yet, so fun stuff. And friend of the show, Brett Levitt, is also, we worked together on that project, so we were chatting a little bit about it. And, thinking about these war stories about architecture and thinking about the award ceremony is just kind of like that final version. And it says so little about the project and what you went through to conceive of it and make it real. And there's so many good stories in there that nobody who visits that building will ever know about. And those are some of the best stories, right? The thing about this project in particular, and you're aware of this one, it's that math and science building that we did. Mm-hmm. And you saw it early on during its kind of conceptual design phase. And then we did some various check-ins over the years as it went through development and actually got built. And like that was just, there's so many fond memories of that process. And I think that's one thing that keeps architects going, right? Is number one, we're not afraid of that messy process. And number two, like there's just so many good things that happen. There's so much that is learned. There's so much insight that you derive from your clients and your clients' clients. And they are kind of eyes opened to a new world that they've never experienced before by being kind of directly involved in that process that most people don't get to go through, at a larger scale. Right. That those to me are like, and those are some of the pull quotes that we had as part of the award submission, was just like what their experience was either during that process or the outcome of that process and how it actually solved the things that they needed that building to solve. To me, that's where the real value of what we do is. And it is also on a day-to-day basis for the people who use that building all the time. But for me, there's so much meeting because we went through those things in person. And I think this speaks directly to your story earlier about this paper that was written from the comfortable armchair at MIT, right? Or, I mean, it's just not the same. It's not the same experience. And we see people critique architecture or say things about a design by simply looking at an image on a screen, or by passing by, or even by experiencing it after the fact, that are just so different than that process that we went through. And I think one of the things that architects have a really hard time articulating is the value that architecture provides. And I think we could probably start to do a better job doing that, which would give architects in general a better name and be better understood by the general public, by articulating those stories that others go through during that process. Because I think if it's a good process, people will want to be a part of that in the future. And so if you can kind of articulate how you do that process and what makes you maybe different about it, or whatever, you could probably start to see a way to get people interested in that, and not just buy buildings, right? Because I think, like, people just see the outcomes of these things, and they see it as a product, and they don't see it as a process that they go through.
So it reminds me of a story. So after Punch was done and everything else for a building that I finished up just before my current project, I was out on site just taking some photographs. So no one there knew who I was, because these are the occupants that were not involved with the process. And so it was virtually, I won't say virtually empty, but it was mostly empty. There was a couple of contractors, walking through, a few professors and things like that moving in, some other administrative people. But then there was a tour going through, and to sit there, I was sitting in the lobby common space and just listening to just the comments that people were making. It's like, oh, I wonder why they did this, or, oh, this is really lovely, or, oh, what was that choice about, kind of thing. And it is so interesting because, I didn't really criticize them. It's just, you don't know. But what it did was it kind of drummed up my memories of why some of those decisions were actually made, and why it does look like that, or like, this decision, like, what did the hell did they do here? And I'm like, if you could just only imagine everything that it took just to get it to look like that, because the alternative would have been, disastrous if, like, I would have followed through with this or that. And so it always, like, interestingly drums up all of these, like, in the tied into how we started, in the foxhole moments when you had to react to something, whether it was during the design process, during the construction process, or a miscoordination of things, when it was actually being installed. And so it's like, oh, hey, because I was thinking about one, in fact, I was sitting right next to a detail that, we had to lower this kind of like gyp wrap underneath the stairs, because rather than them going through, we showed clearly in the drawings, and even in the shop drawings, that they would core through the wide flanges and run all of the piping for the sprinkler system down through, all of these kind of like perpendicular supports for the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't do that, and they ran it underneath. And then they started framing all of this, bulkhead to cover over all of that stuff a lot lower. So the stair looked a lot heavier and thicker than it was. And though they weren't specifically talking about that, they were actually the comment that they made when I was sitting there was, oh, these stairs are beautiful. And I'm more thinking to myself, the hell they are. They could have done, so they should have looked like this and looked like this and looked like this, but no, they look like this because of this and this and this and this. It's just like, so it goes back to just say thank you.
Yeah. Mic drop.